Right guys, so we've got the Powerbass US62 Underseat subwoofer. Now Powerbass is quite a familiar face in the channel. We're actually used to them making stuff like this. Big old 12-inch and 15-inch subwoofers that absolutely pound. We've got the 15-inch versions of these in bass low if you've seen that car, our bass build. But they've had a crack at making a small, compact and easy to install underseat subwoofer. So I'm quite excited to see what this is going to be like. So let's open it up and show you the contents, and then we'll install it in the car and see how it really sounds. Right, so we've got the contents of the box unpacked on the table. So let's start off over here. First thing you're met with is a nice long flat cable. Now this is for your bass controller. It's almost like an Ethernet style port, you may say. Plugs into the underneath of the sub and then plugs into the controller itself. Next is your signal input cable. Now you have options on this to either run low level or high level signal. This is your main power loom. So it gives you your long yellow cable, that's your permanent live, and it's got a built-in fuse, and then you've got a little bullet terminal on the end, so you can tap that into either your fuse box or run it directly to your battery or power source of any kind. You've got this blue cable here, which is your remote turn on, so you can either use this from an ignition, or if you've got an aftermarket unit, a remote switch. And then you've got the black cable, which is your ground. So that's got like a hook terminal on it, so you can hook that around any earthing point. The whole chassis of the car is an earth, so that's nice and easy. Next, inside this packet, there are some plates. This is to be able to mount and physically mount the sub down so it's fixed in a position. You have your hardware, so that consists of screws, a little bracket to hold down the cabling, and you also get some Velcro. So if you want to Velcro it down rather than bolt it down, you can do that. This is your actual bass controller. So it'll be essentially mounted up to the front of the car like this, and then you have full sweep of kind of maximum output and no output at all. And there's a little indicator light on there to tell you when it's on, or if it's in protect or anything like that. It'll show you on this little light. Get a couple of stickers with it. Who doesn't like stickers? Instruction manual, very important to read through this. If you're stuck at any point, this is most likely going to give you the answers. And then you have the subwoofer itself. Right, so this is the sub. So if we turn it to face you, you can see we've got this nice black grille over the front, so there's a metal grille to protect it. And if you can see underneath, there are two oval shaped woofers. It's a dual driven system. So it's two subs playing in sequence, and they produce around 50 watts RMS, 150 watts peak. So a decent amount of output. Obviously it's not loads, it's only a very small enclosure, so you're not going to expect a lot out of this, but should be plenty to keep your system sounding nice and rounded. It's a nice solid design. It is a plastic casing, but it's a kind of hard plastic, and you've got the nice Powerbass logo on the front here. And spin it around. This is where all your cables go into. So they put it at the very bottom. You can run the cabling through this little notch here, so it can sit fully flat, and you've not got any cabling coming out the sides. It all goes into underneath. So in the bottom here, you've got your main power and ground input plug, which is what we showed you earlier. Now, another thing to note with this, if you are using speaker level input off of a factory head unit, you won't need to run your remote or ignition cable in that blue cable in the harness that we mentioned earlier. This has an auto turn on sequence. So if you set it to speaker level, the amplifier inside here will automatically detect a speaker signal coming in, and it will allow the amplifier to turn on. And the same as when that speaker signal is no longer there, it will turn off. This is that Ethernet style port for the bass controller. You've got your audio input cable, so whether you're using high level or low level. You've got a little reset plug, so you can stick a little screwdriver in there and reset it if need be. And then you've got these switches here. So you've got input level. So if you're using high level input, you'd switch that to speaker, so SPK. Or if you're using low level, so RCAs, you'd switch that to RCA. And then you've got input gain. So you can set it to be a high or normal level. So if you're using speaker level input and it seems to be a bit too boomy and you're only just getting it like a quarter away and it's really, really boomy, set that to normal. Or if it's not quite enough, set it to high. Then on this side, you've got your adjustments. So you have a phase switch. So you can set that to 0 or 180 degrees. Essentially changes the sub either kicking out first or kicking in first. It's very dependent on your setup in the vehicle. Play around with that and see which sounds best. You have a bass boost. Normally you can only really want to turn that up a little bit if you want a little bit more output. And then you have LPF, which stands for low pass filter. That goes from 50 to 125 Hertz. That essentially, wherever you set that at, it will play from that number down. So let's say you set it to 100 Hertz, for instance. Put that to roughly 100 Hertz, which will be about there. And then that will play from 100 Hertz down. And that's around 12 dB per octave. Now, in terms of general size of it, it is a nice, small, compact, lightweight setup. We'll put the actual dimensions on the screen now so you can measure up and make sure it actually fits. But as I've said, this is about 50 watts RMS total for the two drivers and 150 watt peak, and that's what the amplifier can produce. This will play from essentially from 40 Hertz upwards, but it's a pretty good looking setup. So I think the best thing to do next is take it downstairs, fit it into a car and see really how it sounds. Because you can't just go by looks. So let's take it downstairs and see what it sounds like. Right, the weirdest thing happened. On the way down the stairs, I fell into a hairdresser's and got my hair cut. But anyway, let's chuck this in the car, see how it sounds. Right, so here we have the sub. Now we have quite quickly made this work in this car. We've already got a sub and amp installed in the boot. So all I've done is tapped off the power in the back, so we've got a couple of wires hanging around. But we've got the main power loom and our remote and our audio inputs here ready to go under the seat. So I'm going to plug it up. We've got our power, got our remote, and we've got our audio. We're all plugged in. We just need to check now our switches here. So we're using a aftermarket JVC head unit. So we are using RCA level input, so that's switched on RCA, as you can see. If you're using a factory head unit or using speaker level input, you'd switch that to SPK. And then input gain, I'm going to set that on normal for now, see how it sounds. If it's not quite loud enough, I'm turning the controller all the way to max. We're still not getting quite a lot out of it, then I can change that to high. But I know this unit's got quite high voltage pre-out, so I'm going to leave that on normal for now. You can always adjust that later. But for now, let's chuck this under the seat. Looks quite nice under there, fits quite nicely. Let's see if the seat goes back. Oh, lovely, it does. So, we'll leave that there. We'll jump in the driver's seat and have a listen. Oh, all right. So, now before we have a listen, I just wanted to say one thing. Now, personally, I'm not the biggest fan of underseat subs, purely for the reason that they very rarely reproduce bass in a way that an actual subwoofer can or will. There's only a few examples of some underseat subs that I've been impressed by. You never know, this might be one of them, but they do their job. They give you bass in the car where you didn't have it before. If you're looking for an underseat sub, just bear in mind, don't ever expect any kind of deep rumbly bass. That's not what they're designed for. They are made to kind of fill the gap where the door speakers can't quite hit or they're distorting or anything like that. You get that little bit of a kick and that little bit of a hum to kind of bring the system together. So let's stop blabbering on and actually have a listen. So whilst that's booting up, I've rigged up the controller on a loose bit of wire here. So it's just here. You do get a bass controller with this model, as we saw upstairs. So I'm going to be having this loose, but obviously if you have it fitted by ourselves or if you fit it in your own car, we're going to obviously fix this somewhere, probably up in the dash somewhere like that. We can then adjust the bass as need be through this. So let me just set this up quickly. The bass side of things is flat, the subwoofer level is off, bass extension is off. The sound effects, I've got no bass boost, no loudness or anything like that on. So this is basically as it would be a flat reference. So I'm going to start off with the sub controller on minimum. So we've got no bass coming out. Let's go level 20. Okay, so a little tiny bit of a kick, but nothing exceptional. Let's turn it up a little bit. All right, feel it. Okay, it's doing well so far. That's about halfway on the controller now. Okay, keep going. Okay, right, so as I got to about there on the controller, now bear in mind this is like a gain control. So as I got to about 1, 2 o'clock on the controller here, you do hear a little bit of distortion, especially in lower frequencies or any punchy parts. You get a little bit of distortion, you hear it kind of farting a little bit. But under 20 volume on this head unit and under kind of halfway on the controller with this track, it's all right so far. Like I said, you're never going to get deep bass out of it, so you may not even really be able to tell in terms of visually tell the difference between the sound, but you probably, if you put in the headphones on, you can probably hear it. So let's change the track. Let's turn it back up. These are stock speakers in this car still. I'm not sure why, but they sound a bit pants. Yeah, so I'm going to start all the way off. We'll wait for the bass to kick in and I'll roll it in slowly. Okay. So that's a quarter. Yep, definitely complementing the system. That's halfway. Makes a big difference. So you go from halfway to nothing, no bass. Halfway. It's pretty good. Okay, so I think next what we'll do is we'll play a couple of frequencies. We'll start kind of lower down in the frequency range. We'll give it a chance. Let's start at about 35 hertz, and then we'll sweep all the way up to like 120 or something like that. We'll see what that does. So we'll start at 35 hertz. I'll set the controller in the middle, and the volume is going to be at 15. Okay, that's 35 hertz. I can feel a little rumble. Let's turn it up. Let's go to 40 hertz. Turn the control up a little bit, I think. There we go. 40 hertz. It's there, but it's very quiet. 50 hertz. Can definitely feel it. Let's try and get a bit more gain. Let's go 3/4. Ah, there we go. It's come in now. 60 hertz. So we'll go back to 50 hertz. It's pretty quiet. Get to about 55 and you start hearing it. 60 hertz. Let's go up again. 65. There we are. 70 hertz. There you go. So that's a decent amount of bass from this little thing. 80 hertz. Right, it's really coming in now. 90 hertz. There we go. 100 hertz. And 100 hertz and beyond is not really from a sub. So yeah, 55, 60 hertz is its kind of point where it really starts to come through and resonate through the cabin. That's obviously on this car. It may sound different in your car. You may be able to get it to play a little bit lower, or it may play a little bit higher. But the lower frequencies, the actual bass tones, 40 hertz and below, it does struggle, I'll be honest, but it is tiny. Right, so that's it for the demo. In conclusion, to be honest, it's not bad. Not bad. Now, it's pretty good for one of the smaller underseat subs on the market. Fits under the seat really nicely. Installation is a breeze. It's pretty good for what it is. Now, again, I'm going to say it, it's not going to compare to an enclosed sub, a boxed sub. Even a 6.5 inch in an enclosure is going to outperform that. But if you've got no other option, or you really do not want to take up any boot space in your car, then something under the seat or in the footwell like this will do the job for you. It's going to give you that hum. It's going to give you that warmth to the sound that your door speakers may be lacking. So it's definitely a good option. So this being a new product from Powerbass, it's their first iteration of like a micro underseat sub with the kind of dual sub setup in there. They have done some underseat subs before, but they tend to be quite large. So they've delved into the more micro side of things. And I think they've done pretty well. This is on our website, carrodysecurity.com. Make sure you check it out, link will be in the description below. It's on the website at the moment at £200, which I think is not bad for the performance and sizing and everything like that you get for your money. But that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Make sure you like, share and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.